Welcome to Dear Romance Writer, your home for the questionable advice for the bewildered and befuddled, random pop culture recommendations, and conversations about you feelings. Be sure to send in your letters seeking advice on our anonymous form at dearromancewriter.com.
Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network, a podcast community of everything romance and romance related. If you're into romance fiction of any flavor, the Frolic Podcast Network includes shows that feature book club style discussions, author interviews, comedy, critique, and fantastic conversations as well.
Includes some of the most innovative, interesting, and entertaining podcasts, including Kinda Dating, Crappy Friends, My Imaginary Friends, Smart Podcast Trashy Books, and Jeff and Will's Big Gay Fiction Podcast. What does this mean for you, the listener? More shows to enjoy and more opportunities for us to introduce you to great episodes and new podcasts you'll love. Find new shows to add to your podcast subscriptions at frolic.media/podcasts. Now on to this week's show.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to another episode of Dear Romance Writer. We are super excited to have you here. I am Avery Flynn.
I'm Roan Parrish.
I'm Zio Axelrod.
And we have the fabulous BB Easton here with us. You might know of BB either from her book, 44 Chapters About for Men, and the spinoff, and then the dystopian series that came after that. Or you may know her from this little series that a couple of people have watched on Netflix called Sex Life. So BB, folks think they know you. What did they actually know about the real you?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Yes, that was a beautiful introduction. I was a school psychologist, so this was actually really exciting for me because I love talking about relationships and mental health and all of the kinds of things that you guys touch on here. And honestly feel like I wouldn't give responses half as eloquent and thoughtful as some of yours. So I'm a big fan.
Oh.
But yeah, I was a school psychologist for 9 years. And then when I was on maternity leave and just in the trenches of motherhood with a 4-month-old baby and a 3-year-old son and a husband with a full-time job, I started reading romance and realized that I had dated all of these guys. It was like, I dated the motorcycle dude. I dated the tattoo artist. I dated the Marine. I could write these stories and not even make anything up. So that's what I started doing. I just became extremely dangerously sleep deprived because in the middle of the night, in between feedings with my daughter, I was writing these diary entries really about my exes. And really it was a way to reconnect with who I used to be, with the fun, spunky girl that I used to be, because I was just a disgusting milk machine who felt like my life was not mine. And, it was all responsibility. And
I identify with that so much. I remember people talk about that, breastfeeding is the most beautiful thing. And I connect with my child. Oh my God, I was so glad to be done with it. By the time it was over, it was horrible. But that's just me. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah. But it's hard. It's just hard. Like, even if you love it, it's still incredibly hard. And you just don't feel like you have any freedom or fun in your life for a while. So as I was writing these journal entries, they were just supposed to be for me and really just made me happy. I discovered that in my sleep deprived state, I must have left my laptop out for my husband to accidentally stumble upon because one night I heard it slam shut as I was coming down the stairs, and he's like sitting on the couch all like innocent or guilty, actually quite guilty, and assumed I was getting divorced, like do not pass go, like this is over now. I don't know what he read. But the next night he came home and said, we're going on a date. I got a babysitter, and started acting out some of the things bedroom wise that I had written about, and I kind of stumbled upon like the holy grail of marital behavior modification. So naturally, I kept it going as long as possible, turned it into a book. Now it's a Netflix series, and I am no longer a school psychologist. So
That's
life
amazing
is
story.
good.
That is like an amazing story.
It's
Well,
insane.
I love it. You followed the Rowan rule of relationships, and you just communicated in a different way.
Yeah.
So, but yes,
Right.
it
That's
is.
right.
It is. Well, speaking of communication, we have a great couple of letters here for everybody, and we're super excited to have BB in on this with us. We'll start off with a letter from somebody who wants to be called Guiltily Pleasured, which quite frankly, I think needs to be the name of a book. I would definitely read that 100%. So she says, firstly, this is the first time I've discovered a podcast in time to not be overwhelmed by a huge backlist, and I am loving it. Thanks for all the chat, all the recs, the gift of mutual masturbation, and everything. See? I have a fun dilemma for you. My partner, male, and I, female, are okay to sing it, but I won't do that because I like you people.
Solid as a rock. Sorry, go ahead.
Hey, thank you.
What is that song? Wait, what song is that?
Oh my
Solid-
God, you don't know that song?
I don't remember who does it. Is it? I can't remember. Solid as a rock. It's like an R&B song from the
It is.
pop R&B song from the 70s, 80s.
I think the 70s.
Apologies.
70s.
Oh, late
It reminded
70s,
me
early
of the,
80s.
Isn't there a car commercial? that-
Ashford and Simpson. That's who it is.
There you go.
Ashford and Simpson.
Mhm.
Yeah, there
I'm
is a car
singing
commercial
it
that
now.
uses it.
We're gonna
Anyway.
have to sing you. We'll send you YouTube clips. There you go.
There you go.
Anyway, sorry. So we've been together for almost a decade, and though we haven't really been tested by children or major life crises, we have I don't know what you would say there. We've always made it through any little niggles with a great communication and love, keeping our independent and partner lives balanced. That is a trick right there. The pandemic has obviously been horrible, but him being the only person I really saw for over a year was actually one of the easiest parts of it. Basically, I adore him. I love all of this. Now and again, we meet up with other couples for singles for threesomes/foursomes because it's fun and why not? Now to the issue. A few weeks ago, we met up with another couple, MF, all vaccinated and tested, and I had the best sex of my life. This guy and I just had great chemistry. We were in sync. I was surprised because I had been so about his chat early on, but then physically it was incredible. My partner, however, had a less good time. It was fine overall, but he didn't have as good a physical connection with the other woman and is feeling down about his performance. We've, of course, had a big old digest and lots of laughs about how it went, but knowing that his evening wasn't as incredible as mine, I haven't been able to shake a couple of feelings. Number one, guilt. One of the great things about doing this together over the years has been that we've been together. I feel like I abandoned him a little bit and was caught up with enjoying myself too much to notice when he wasn't having as much fun. We definitely did more separate stuff than we usually do, and although I didn't suggest it, I was happy to go along with it. We'll set our boundaries and expectations more solidly in the future, but for now, how can I get past this feeling? He isn't making me feel like this or dwelling on it, so maybe I just learn from the future and get over it. Number two, guilt again. Yay, it's the gift that keeps giving. My partner knows that I had a great time, but I haven't told him it was the best. Should I? It's not like there's anything specific we could try to recreate. A lot of it just had to do with bodies just working. So I feel like this is an instance where there's no point in potentially hurting his feelings or denting his ego when he's already not feeling like Adonis right now. On the other hand, I'm so used to being honest with him about everything that I feel uncomfortable holding this back. If this came up miles in the future, I can be such an oversharer when I drink. I've been working on it. I feel your pain, but I can see it happening. Would it seem like a bigger deal and potentially hurt him even more because I hadn't said it from the outset? Please give me your thoughts. Am I flat out overthinking? What would, in parentheses, favorite romance heroine, in parentheses, do? Thanks again for all the joy you're giving me with the podcast and your books, and stay safe. Guiltily pleasured. Oh, man.
Wow.
I know.
Guilt.
Well, I think we should start number one by just saying congratulations on having phenomenal sex. It may not have happened in the way that you were expected, or kind of wanted, but I think when you have those moments where things are just phenomenal, I think that's really important to acknowledge it and hold on to it, put it in your pocket, because there are going to be days when that's not there, and you want to be able to have that in your pocket, say, hey. So that's number one. I won't even touch the guilt yet. I'll make you guys touch guilt.
Well, the first thing that occurs to me, and I don't mean this to be to seem suspicious at all, or not suspicious, but like cynical at all, just like literal, is that you had the best sex of your life, which is, again, like Avery said, amazing, but it's not as if this other man gave you the best sex of your life. It was half you. It's half of what makes sex good, or fill in the numbers as it suits you, is like how you're feeling in the moment, how turned on you already are, what you're thinking about, how primed your body is. There's so many factors that I think it's perhaps a mistake, or I should say unuseful, to attach the like best sex of your life to this random other person. I think that gives it more power than it needs to have. And it I think could be what's fueling your guilt, because in your head, it sounds like you're saying like, I should have had the best sex of my life with my husband, which I also think is not true. Like, I think so much of this is about coming into a situation that's sort of like not the cultural norm, still being filtered through cultural norms in a way that then makes it like harder on you than it has to be. So like step one, I think, is, even though you said some of it was just about bodies, is like thinking about what was all the other stuff that wasn't just like this particular person's body that was going on. Were you really in the mood to have sex? What were you thinking about? What had you and your husband, or you yourself, been doing earlier in the day? What book were you reading at the time? What music was playing? What temperature were you? Were you wearing something that made you feel really sexy? Like, there are so many other pieces that go into sex and how it feels than just like the physical mechanics of coming together in a specific way. And a lot of those, I think, you could probably recreate to amp up any sex you were having. And I think that this attachment of like, I'm married to this person and we play with other couples, and I'm going to feel guilty if I ever have sex with anyone that feels better than it does with my husband. It's just, and I say this with like all the kindness and love in the world, it's so pointless. And it's so, forgive like me blaming everything on capitalism, but everything that's wrong is because of capitalism. And like,
I'm going to respectfully disagree on that, but I love you.
This is such a capitalist mode of thinking, that everything is in hierarchical order, that the hierarchy that you place things in is directly related to their worth and value, and that those two things have to line up, otherwise something has gone wrong in the calculations. Like, none of that is true. None of that is necessary. And rankings are silly. Okay.
Well, and something you said really resonated with me, as far as not placing the emphasis or the credit for this experience completely on this other person. Really, she could give some of the credit to her partner, because they would not have had that experience at all. She wouldn't have had that experience at all if it weren't for him being okay with these group situations that they participate in. That was kind of a gift from him also. So even though it didn't feel as good to him, or he didn't have as good of a time, that was still something that I feel like he should get some credit for that still. Like, that was a gift. I was just listening to this letter. I heard so much love. And that was something that I feel like will really carry them through. Like, this isn't that big of a deal. There's a lot of guilt there. And I think she wants to purge herself of that because she doesn't like those icky feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much love that I really feel like they will get past this. And it's probably just a learning experience. Like, okay, what can we do differently in the future so that I know that he's being taken care of as well, or, you know, whatever. But I think they've been doing this for so long and are still so connected that they'll learn from this and grow from it and be fine. But she should not tell him. She should not tell him that was the best sex of her life.
Thank you.
Don't think that's
I've been waiting, going, all right, come on, guys.
Yeah, no.
She should say that she, you know, I really feel, I don't think this is necessary, but I feel like it would make her feel better to just apologize. Don't say, you know, I'm sorry that I had better sex with this guy, but say, I'm sorry that you didn't have as good of a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'm going to work harder in the future to make sure that you do have a good time or something. I think that simple statement will let him know that she feels bad and that she's thinking about him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree with what everyone said. I do think it's dangerous to attribute that kind of experience to one person. Like Rowan said, it could be a myriad of circumstances. The music, the temperature, the clothing, the bed sheets, it could be anything that contributed to her having this great time. And for her to say, there's no point in trying to recreate it, I think is a bit dismissive of what she contributed to that. So, you know, really think about what it was that you really liked in that moment. If it was, you said it was a body thing, was it, you know, the size of his penis? If it was, you know, there are toys, there are other things that you can do to recreate this feeling with your partner. So yeah, I agree. Don't say, hey, I had the best sex of my life, but, you know, work something into the conversation that you guys have that, you know what, I really enjoy this thing. Let's try this thing, or let's try something, you know, whatever, like work that in, because you guys seem to have really great open communication, and you have a lot of love, like BB said, and a lot of comfort with each other. And I don't think you'll have a problem talking about this, but building this up in your mind, and the longer you hold on to it, the bigger it's going to get and the more guilty you're going to feel. So I think find a way to, I like the idea of apologizing for not being on the same page in terms of the experience. Hey, I'm sorry you didn't have a great time. Let's figure out how we can both be fulfilled by these experiences. And also, you know, what do you like? What have you learned from these experiences that you like that we aren't doing? Here's what I like that we haven't been doing. Let's try that. So I think just keeping the lines of communication open and, you know, being honest with each other. You seem like you're in a great place. So I don't think you need to worry if that's part of the guilt.
I agree. I think that, you know, she asked specifically, am I flat out overthinking? I don't think she's flat out overthinking. I think she's adding a lot of things that probably she could let go of. Mm-hmm. You know, I think we as a society so many times associate pleasure and sex with guilt, right? So I can understand. And there's also the aspect of when you are in a great partnership and you guys take care of each other, I'm not talking just sexually, but if their happiness is part of your happiness, you know, if you were in that kind of a relationship, which I wish upon everyone, then yes, you want them to have as much fun as you do. This sounds like it has been going on for quite some time. So this is not your first time at this particular rodeo. You have been to this rodeo. You are season ticket holders, right? So that, to me, I would just kind of like to back it up just a second and think, I personally would be very highly surprised if it hasn't already happened, if it doesn't happen in the future, that he's in a similar situation, right? So I would ask yourself, if that is the case, whether it has happened already or it may happen in the future, not to put a bad thought in your head, but, you know, what would you like? If you were in that spot, what would you like? Would it make a difference for you to know that he had this phenomenal sex when you had, it was good? You know, if he had baked pizza and you had Domino's, okay? You know, if that is the case, you know, what would you like in that? And I love the idea of going through and saying, hey, I hate that you didn't have as good a time. If there's something else that we can do next time, so maybe we have a code word or something to where you can be like, I'm not as into this, or whatever it may be. That is a great thing to think about. So I love that. No, I don't think you need to say anything to him. Quite honestly, at this point in time, unless this is a situation, let me caveat this. If this is a couple that you guys are going to be meeting with repeatedly, because that's something you don't say in the letter, is if you guys tend to have like repeat friends, or if you have one and off, so kind of keep that emotional separation a little bit more. So if this is a repeat situation, that changes things. Then maybe you do need to talk about it, and you do need to bring it up. And then the other side of it, if it's just a one-time thing, though, I think that gives you a lot more leeway to say, is the hurt that I will be giving to my partner, whether it's just an ego bruise, worth enough to sort of unsheath your guilt, so if you're feeling guilty because you feel like you may have hurt the person by having a better time than they did, are you really going to make them feel better by, releasing your guilt? So that at least is something to think about for sure.
And I would ask, like, I'm putting myself in this position, and I'm like, okay, if my girlfriend and I had sex with another couple, and in the whatever you call the after game talking about things that they do on sports shows, that's a thing, right? There's a word for that. Post game.
The color commentary.
Yes, we need the ESPN music.
If we're like in the post game and we're talking about what kind of a time we had, and she was like, that sex was amazing, I loved it, and I was like, my sex was mediocre. The idea that I would be sad that we didn't both have mediocre sex, like, that's outrageous. Think about if your partner begrudges you having good sex in a setup that you both agreed to specifically for the purpose of having good sex, then he's being a baby and it's not your fault. I just like, I feel like this needs to be said, is like, any sex, and this is kind of, I think, maybe to piggyback on what Bibi was saying, like, any sex that y'all have with other people is an extension of your sex life. It's still part of you and your partner's sex life, you and your husband's sex life. Like, you've decided to have sex with other people to incorporate that into your life in the way that you would incorporate a toy or a role play or something. Like, those people have also consensually chosen to have sex with you. So like, this is something that you've decided together. And of course you both want to be like really invested in and attentive to one another's feelings. And if you're having a good time, but like, you're adults, and in the middle of sex, it's maybe not like reasonable to expect that your partner is going to be like leaning over and like, okay, scale of 1 to 7, like right now, do we need to go in the other room? Do we need to okay.
Comment
let's
card.
have a check-in moment.
Have hand signals.
Right, like
hand signals. Yes.
Yes,
I love this.
An unreasonable expectation to put on yourself or your partner. And if your partner is not having a good enough time to the point where they want to stop, then they need to take care of that for themselves. That is part of having sex with someone, is that if you don't want to have sex with them anymore and you want to withdraw consent and you want to slow it down, like, your partner should be able to do that. And you should be able to talk about that in advance, of course. But I think it sounds not like your partner suddenly was like, I'm not into this, I do not want to be having sex anymore. Rather just that like the chemistry that he had with this other person wasn't clicking quite in the way that you and the other person's chemistry were clicking. In which case, like, I'll just say it, he should be happy for you and it's fine. And I think that the guilt, like what Avery was saying, I'm sure that there have been times when he had better sex than you did. I'm sure there have been times when you both had great sex or bad sex, but like, it's about equity, not equality.
Right,
it's not that
right.
every single time the two of you have sex with another couple, you both need to like come at an 8.5, and the next time you both has to be like 2.3. Like, it's not a sex Richter scale. You can't control it. It's not a reasonable expectation to put on sex for it to be completely equal at all times. But if the general flow, like if the line of best fit is that you guys are like pretty even over the course of however many years you're doing it, then that's great and you're winning. And so, like, to me, it's really not actually about the sex at all. It's about you feeling like you have something that your partner doesn't have, and you for some reason don't feel like you're allowed to have something that he doesn't have. And that, to me, that's the guilt, right? Is like you feeling like you don't deserve to have pleasure unless he did too, which is like a super common thing, as Avery was saying, in people who are socialized as women. Like we can feel okay having pleasure, but only if it's like less than or equal to the pleasure of our partner. And that's
how fucked up is that? Can we just stop for a second and talk about how fucked up that is?
Extremely fucked.
Sorry. It's
Such a great
extremely
point.
fucked up.
But yeah, and so I think that, like, to me, this guilt is actually like, I don't really have an opinion on whether, like, I think saying to your husband that was the best sex I ever had is unnecessary, as everyone has said, because it wouldn't accomplish anything. But I also think, like, it's not really about that. It's like what you're feeling is, and the thing that if I were you, I would have a conversation about is like, hey, can we chat about what we're both getting out of this practice that we have of having sex with other people? Because I'm actually having this weird feeling that, like, I am only comfortable when either you have more pleasure than me or we have equal pleasure. But, like, I realized that the last time when I experienced more pleasure than you, I'm having all this guilt about it. I know some of where that comes from, like, it's society, it's this, it's that, but, like, can we talk about it? Because I want to know what you think, how you feel. Is this, like, what's going on here? And, like, that's the thing to talk about, is the feelings, I think, not the
performance.
Yeah. And it's an incredibly important conversation, particularly if they plan on seeing that couple again.
Yeah.
Because that will only grow, and it'll only, so yeah.
And if you find a couple that your partner has, like, better chemistry with the person than you, then it's like hey, I like Indian food a little more and my partner doesn't like it as much, but it's still fine for her to eat. Hey, she likes burgers more than me, but I can still hang. And so, like, on a night when she gets to pick, maybe we have burgers and I'm fine with it. And on my night it's Indian food. And, like, as long as it's not one of you being like, no, it has to be Indian food every single time.
Right.
No, it's like, not, you're a human person in a life where, like, not everything is going to be completely equal at all moments. And that is really okay.
That's actually because there's a line in the letter where she says, the guy and I had great chemistry. We were in sync. I was surprised because I had been so about the chat, but went and did it anyway. So that's right there is the compromise. I mean, you're absolutely right, Ron, as always.
And you know what's really interesting to me too is the fact that, as she talks, she makes the joke, what would your favorite romance heroine do here? But these instances, a lot of times, and Rowan, you touched on this, was the like reading a book. It's what you bring to it. It's your life experiences. It's your mood at the time. Were you hungry? Being hungry change everything. So all of those things. So I would say also, when you're thinking about this, like I said at the beginning, fold up and put it in your pocket, that awesome, amazing sex memory, because that's great, but also don't blow it up into something bigger than it is. So, and I
feel like the proof of this, right? The proof that it's, like, actually not about the other person is, since you mentioned our recommendation of mutual masturbation, you're welcome. Like, we have all, right, had the experience, like, when you masturbate, it's not as good every time. It's not completely the same. And that's with yourself. So obviously it's not about the person. There are so many other things that are like,
you'd had 3 Oreo cookies and half a gallon of ice cream, and it was just a little off.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think like there is this, there's this phrase in romance novels that, or in Romancelandia that people say like the magic genitalia, like
Yeah.
the person who's like sad or has a chronic illness and it's
Cured the
healed
penis.
by
Yeah.
coming into contact with the magic genitalia. Like we all know that that's not true and that that's silly. But it's still so easy, I think, partly because of the way society talks, like specifically about penises. It's so easy to convince ourselves without even noticing it that we are like placing the power of our own pleasure into the physical appendage of another person. And that's a lot of power to give away.
It is. It is. It really is.
The physical appendage of another person and the emotional experience of another person. Like all of our pleasure is derived from, was it good for him? Did he like it? Was he into me? There's so much. I've heard one time it's like sex is for women is about being desired, and for men it's like the physical experience of it. But it's that like all of that feedback that you get from your partner during sex is what classically women are seeking, or we're conditioned to seek, is, do you think I'm pretty? Am I pleasing you? Are you happy? Do I make you happy? And so I think it's all of that, Victorian stuff coming back to cause her this guilt, because I seriously doubt her partner would be staying awake at night, losing sleep over if he had more pleasure than she did during that experience. He'd be like, he's sleeping great.
He'd be like, well, dudes always sleep. They're freaks of nature. It's unfair. Yeah.
But
yeah. Ugh. Well, either way, number one, I think we're all glad that you had fabulous sex.
Yeah.
Number one. We're all full supporters of that. Number two, I think we're all full supporters of the fact that you have what seems like a very great relationship with a partner, that you guys have solid communication. And, you are overthinking a little bit.
Which means that you care.
Which just means that you care, but you also, the guilt, let it go. Let it go, because I think Rowan hit it on the head with, you're feeling the guilt because of almost a zero-sum game idea of sex. And that's just not how sex or relationships work. Thank God. And I say that as a capitalist. So, yeah. All right. So we have a super maddening "So What Would You Do" segment. Yeah. Zia, walk us through this fun stuff.
Right. I'm going to read this. It's a little long, but I think it needs to be read in its entirety because there's a lot going on here. It's from Reddit, and trigger warnings of mental illness and eating disorder discussions, just for our listeners and viewers. Okay, so some background. I'm 24, male, and in early 2020, I got diagnosed with EDNOS, eating disorder not otherwise specified. At the time, I was shocked because I very much didn't fit the stereotype I had in my head for an ED sufferer. I was going to the gym a lot and was pretty buff, and I was making sure to pick healthy foods and stuff. In hindsight, it's kind of obvious though. I was going to the gym for 2-hour sessions twice a day, 6 days a week, sometimes 3 times if I wasn't working. And I had a debilitating obsession with tracking macros to make sure I was staying quote unquote healthy, to the point where I would literally have full-blown panic attacks over eating too many carbs or too much fat. It was bad, and I've spent this past year doing my best to heal. I'm now going to the gym to one gym session 5 days a week, and I've deleted all the food trackers from my phone. I'm far from fully recovered, but I'm getting there. My girlfriend, 28, female, was always really into my buff body. It's what she liked most about me and what attracted her to me in the first place. She was initially incredibly supportive of my recovery, but now it doesn't feel like she is anymore. I'm still pretty ripped. I hate using these words. It feels so cringe by most people's standards, just a tiny bit squidgier than I was, but it seems to be enough squidge to have put her off me quite a bit. We've gone from having frequent sex, which she usually enthusiastically initiated, to nothing at all. She never wants to touch me anymore and tells me no thanks if I try to initiate anything. Also, and I'm just going to say this frankly, sorry if it's crass or TMI, We have kind of a semi-open thing sexually. And part of that is she likes watching me get railed by other dudes, but she also shot down any suggestions of that happening recently, even in a COVID safe way. Beyond the sex, she also doesn't want to do stuff like shower together or go swimming or to the beach with me or anything, though she has done both of the latter with friends recently. A few nights ago, she surprised me by actually asking for sex, which of course I was excited about, but she made me leave my shirt on while we did it. Like she physically moved my hands and stopped me when I went to take it off. I know this isn't a big deal for some folks, but she has never wanted me to leave my top on before, so it kind of felt out of left field. I didn't want to ruin things by asking why or anything, so I left it, but it kind of put a damper on the whole thing for me. I did bring it up lightly a day or so later, and she just shrugged and said she liked me in that top. And to be clear, this was kind of a manky old Budweiser tee with bleach stains that I wear for kicking about the house and cleaning and stuff. It wasn't like super sexy nice shirt or anything. Even with that explanation, this is plaguing me. I know my body has changed a little bit, but I felt good about it until now. Now I really feel like I'm headed back to square one with hating my body all over again. I even covered the bathroom mirror when I showered earlier so I didn't have to see myself naked. I just don't know what to do. I don't want to be sick anymore, but I don't want to lose my girlfriend either, which I know is inevitable if she doesn't find me attractive anymore. I'm scared that if I ask her outright about it, she might get upset, and I don't want to hurt her. Is there maybe some way that I can do both? Like maybe something I can do to look less doughy without falling back to bad habits? Edit, just to clarify some things coming up a lot in comments, the open/getting railed thing is something I'm into as well. I don't just do it for her benefit. Trust me, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it. Also, for the couple of folks for whom this is a new concept, it's called bisexuality. It's great fun. Some folks seem to think this is a very new relationship, so I'll also throw in that we've been together almost 5 years, and this is our first real hurdle. Whew, it's hard reading that without like wanting to put my fist through the monitor. Like,
yeah, wanting to throat punch somebody while
seriously
simultaneously giving the poor guy a
hug with one arm, slap with the other. Like,
yes.
Good grief. I'm really glad that that you chose this, because we always talk about eating disorders in terms of what people who are socialized as women go through, especially young girls. And this is a great example of how it can affect anyone. And you never know just by looking at them. They're buff, they're ripped, they're whatever they are. You never know what someone is dealing with. So there's a saying from SCOM. I'm going to bring that up. When they said, everyone you meet is going through something you know nothing about. So be kind. Right. Just be kind. And this girl. Anyway, you guys talk.
Yeah.
I'm mad.
Yeah, my heart broke reading this. I am an eating disorder survivor, and say survivor in all seriousness. I'm 5'6" and weighed 89 pounds on my wedding day, Jesus. Which is over 30 pounds less than I weigh now. And I'm still very thin. I have permanent physical damage, like heart issues and circulation issues from the damage that I did to my body. It lasted for most of my until I had kids, until I got pregnant and had to start eating in order to keep my pregnancy. But this just broke my heart listening. And, being a former school psychologist, did a lot of research and learning about this while I was in grad school, and still couldn't get over it, even though I knew exactly what I was doing and why I was doing it. It's like an addiction. It is so similar to addiction in the sense that there's something emotional is happening that you are feeding or controlling or managing through this behavior. And instead of ingesting drugs, you might be overeating or under-eating or over-exercising, which eating disorder not otherwise specified for anybody who's not familiar with that term. A lot of times over-exercise falls into that category. But
very regimented eating.
Very regimented eating. But it is so much like an addiction also, in that when you go through rehab, you have to, one of the biggest things they say is you have to get out of that environment and you have to get away from your enabler friends. And I hate to say this because I know it's not the answer that he wants, but this girlfriend of his is like his heroin friend. It's like his drug buddy that he's gonna have to choose between. Either I can have the lifestyle with these friends or this particular person, or I can have my health. But I can't imagine. I mean, when I was in recovery, it was so hard. but I had a very supportive partner. I had children that I had to stay healthy for. I had all of these reasons to get healthy and no reasons not to, really, except for in my head. I cannot imagine if my partner was looking at my newer, healthier body and making me feel ugly.
Yeah.
I would fall off the wagon so hard. I mean, I would be
He's so close.
hospitalized.
He's close.
Yeah,
so
he,
close.
you can feel that white knuckle right there.
Calling
Yes.
himself
And 100%,
doughy
it's like having the person say, "Oh my God, you were so much funnier when you were drunk."
Mhm.
You know,
Yes.
it is the exact same.
I liked you
thing.
better when you weren't so uptight and you used to just party all the time. Like, this is the same.
Yeah, it is the
thing.
exact same thing. Yeah, this is.
I really
And
wish
what
that
she
he had
is
written to
doing
us
is
directly so
very-
we could answer him directly, because this
I know.
is so.
Yeah.
But it's manipulative. I
Yeah.
mean, it is, and it is.
Oh, she's older
Funny.
than him. I just realized she's a couple years older than him. He's 24, she's 28.
But and if they've been together for 5 years.
For 5 years.
Yeah. So it's been his entire really formative part of his existence. I just wanted to kind of jump off the eating disorder with men thing. This actually is more common than I think we like to acknowledge. And a lot of times eating disorders within men makes an appearance in physical activity, in super tracking, and basically anybody from the Midwest like me who grew up where wrestling was huge, you know, all of these eating disorder guys.
Yeah.
All right. They were the ones walking around in the saran wrap tracksuit at lunch so they could make weight, so that is how eating disorders often, not always, often appear in men, is more in that instance. And also with the macro and things like that, you can still have binge eating tendencies, even if what you're doing is, I'm binge eating this vegetable all of the time. It is not what you are ingesting, it is your habits, right? And what you're doing. So just a couple of things. So there's that. Number 2, we've had 2 like abusive partner episodes in a row, quite frankly, because our last one was as well, but this is an abusive partner.
Yeah,
that is
absolutely.
exactly what this is. This is a partner who is trying to control and who is not is controlling through withholding affection. And I'm not saying just withholding sex, because affection is also in how you are treating your partner. So this person is controlling through withholding of affection. And I would say the fact that he at least has come out and said, this is not good. I realize it's not good, but what can I do to make her love me again? Breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Oh. Two things that I heard. Me too. 2 things that I heard that kind of gave me hope, that I actually was over here writing down while you read that again, was he said from the outset, my buff body was what she liked most about me. He knows.
Yeah, he knows.
She does not truly love him. And it's just this attachment person because they've been together for so long. But that gave me some hope that he said, I know this is what she likes most about me. Something else that gave me some hope was that he used the word inevitable. I think it's inevitable that this is going to come to an end, but is that, he's still grasping. He's in that bargaining. This is like going through the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah.
First love.
I mean, he was 19 when they got together.
Yeah. I mean, my first love was toxic as hell too. So I understand that, like, that is you go through all 5 stages of grief a couple of times during this extraction process when you grow past this person who's toxic and decide that you want better for yourself, or that, you're going to go it alone versus being saddled to somebody who's emotionally abusive. And you're absolutely right. That is what she's doing. It is, it's control, it's manipulation, and it is withholding affection, which is absolutely abusive, especially to somebody who's in recovery. It just breaks my heart. But I am hopeful that he used some of those terms. I'm hearing that he's he's seeing down the road. He knows what's coming. He doesn't want to face it, but at least he's not in that place where it's like, no, this is the love of my life. I'm staying forever. I'll do whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he wrote this letter.
Yeah.
The fact that he wrote this letter, and, you know, he does say, what can I do? But the letter is really about his struggle and, you know, how he feels. It really bugs me that she's going through that thing where she's not just controlling him in the bedroom, she's excluding him from their social circle by going to the beach and doing these other things that they used to do with their friends together. That is just, I don't know.
And I have to wonder if there's more going on with his girlfriend as well. Like, I also have had an eating disorder and overexercise, and like what this guy's describing, this kind of orthorexia, which is like an obsession with health to the point of obsession and addiction. I mean, that's kind of how it started for me too. I actually started changing the way I ate at one point in my life because I was severely depressed and I was scared to go on antidepressants. I was too scared because I thought that they would change me as a person. And I read all of this stuff about like changing to a non-inflammatory diet and all these things that you could try to do. And I was like, last ditch effort, I'll do whatever it takes. And it was great until me, an addictive personality, started being completely unable to control it. And it is behavioral. And I mean, I second everything that Bibi said, but it was also something that once I was in the clutches of it, when my opinion about other people's behaviors changed because I wasn't thinking about them anymore. I was only ever thinking about myself and what I was consuming and how I looked. I've never been more self-obsessed in my life than when I was struggling with an eating disorder. Everything became about appearance. And like, to say that is embarrassing for me because I have never before that or since then like thought of myself as like a superficial person, which is how I know that it was a disorder and not like a personality trait, right? But I think that one of the things that I am reading between the lines of this letter is that I think his girlfriend also has an eating disorder. And I think that sees him changing his lifestyle. She sees herself losing.
So that's a reflection on her.
I think so. And I think
it could be their whole circle of friends, because you know that bodybuilding community, there's a lot of dysfunction in that community.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I think that what I again, I know this is, I'm bringing this to the letter, but like what I felt clearly when I read this was that his girlfriend has an eating disorder, knows she has an eating disorder, and has no interest in stopping or getting help or recovering. And that when she sees his body change as a result of overcoming his eating disorder, all she sees is, if I were to stop, my body would also change and I won't like it. And because she's not ready yet to recover, she is using him to keep herself where she wants to be. And the unfortunate fallout of that, like as we've been saying, is that it's abusive because she has an addiction and a problem, and she is speaking to him as if all he is a crutch for her own addiction. And that is so horrible. Even if he weren't in recovery, that would be horrible. Because he is, like, babe, leave now. You gotta get out now.
Yeah.
And I just speak to that. I think you are absolutely right. I also feel like this rejection of him is a rejection of, like you said, it's a rejection of the idea of health. It's a rejection of the idea of giving up this thing that she needs, that she is addicted to, that she is obsessed with. And it's also, I think, subconsciously interpreted as a rejection of her. So he is turning his back on their lifestyle. And exactly. He is, by saying, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't healthy. This isn't good for me. Is saying, you're not healthy. You're not good for me. Or I'm better than you, or I'm getting better and you're not. And it's just, you are absolutely right. That is, there's so much more tied up in this than just the way it looks. It is her grip on something that she is, dependent on and not ready to give up.
Totally. And that kind of folie à deux, where a couple create this shared world, and then live inside it. Like
Oh,
when
yeah.
one person tries to break out of that, it can cause extreme panic, violence,
Yeah.
desperation on the part of the
Yes.
other partner. And I think that's what we're seeing here. It's starting subtle, I mean, subtle-ish, where like
Mhm.
she's not coming right out and saying it, but I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like this is a person who will only escalate if he
Yep.
keeps getting healthier.
Well,
And
she's
I,
already gone pretty far on that. You know what I mean? Wait, and I have to rewind you again, Rowan. What did you call it when two people?
Bali
Say it again.
Bali Ada, the madness of two. It's like a shared misperception or a created madness that a couple. It doesn't
I
have to
love
be
your brain.
couple, it could be like a mother daughter. It's like Bonnie and
Yeah.
Clyde syndrome, I think they sometimes
Yeah.
call it.
Mhm.
No,
And families a lot too, where it's just like
Yeah.
this nest of
Yeah.
mental illness. And if one person tries to leave the nest, they all want to grab you and pull you back in. I
Yeah.
think that's exactly what this is.
And these communities too, like the bodybuilding community, the modeling community, some acting communities, they have this sort of shared mentality too of what you're supposed to present yourself as, what you're supposed to look like. And bodybuilding, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen like the documentaries about like, was it Muscle Beach and Venice Beach and places like that, where it's really unhealthy. It's a really, really unhealthy situation. And so I hope that he's not surrounded by people like her, you know, and doesn't have anyone supporting him. If she was his sole support system in this recovery, then I worry about his recovery.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a super practical, small suggestion, but I would change gyms.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
going to
that's
the
a
same
great
gym
point.
that you went to
Yeah.
when you were unhealthily exercising.
yeah,
You're going to be comparing your current routine to your past routine and your current body to your past body. And that's a really bad comparison to make. So I would change gyms. I would change exercise gear so that
Yeah.
you don't think like this is fitting my body differently than it used to. You think I got new workout clothes.
yep,
Absolutely.
And
It's like when you quit smoking. Like you have to get rid of the ashtrays, you have to get rid of the lighters, you
Yep.
have to stop going to that place where you used to always go on your smoke break for lunch. You got to go to the other place. Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
all of that environmental and just the props and the
Yeah,
stuff, all of those triggers. It's just like with addiction. It's such a great point.
yeah,
Well, and it's, you know, what they call the health and wellness community now, it is still just diet culture. It's just called something different. And so it you know, I can't tell you, you know, think of your Instagram feed. How many scrolls through do you have to get before you're somebody going fasting or counting your macros or everything else? So it can be really hard to escape that stuff.
yeah,
So deleting some social media might be helpful as well.
Yeah.
At least, you know, and it doesn't have to be forever. But yeah, stuff like that can really make a difference as well.
yeah.
Oh,
and I
this
feel
poor
like
guy, I just want to give him a hug.
I know, and I'm glad
know.
we're talking about this also because I feel like one of the things that I have a perpetual problem with in Romancelandia is like casual fat phobia, casual casual, like I guess I would call it like attaching ethical or moral worth to certain kinds of eating. People talking about like being guilty or saying things about like I ate the whole bag of cookies, I'm terrible, you know, any of that stuff. Like I'm not saying that the people who say those things are bad, but I think that like the quote, Zio, that you were saying, you never know who's in recovery, and like some of those kinds of speech are so ingrained in many of us that we don't even know we're saying them. We don't audit our speech. You know, we try to like cut out certain kinds of language, racist language, homophobic language. You know, when you, like if someone says to you, hey, it's not cool to use that phrase because actually it's homophobic, you would be like, oh my gosh, I'm really sorry, I didn't know. You would stop using it. But I find that over and over again when people say like, hey, it's actually not super chill to say, to like talk about every time you mention eating dessert feeling guilty about it, people are so resistant to incorporating those kinds of changes into their vocabulary. I don't really know why, and I don't care, but it's so harmful. And
Well, I think it goes back
is.
to what BB was
Mhm.
saying about the nest. I mean, in that instance, that nest is our entire society because,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that isn't it our entire society type of thing.
It is.
It's not, calories are calories. Food is food. There's not good food. There's not bad food. There's not medium food. It is all just food. It's just, as a society, we have assigned those things. And then you take, I mean, there are just so many different levels, and food for some reason has so much of a fixation within our society, because you also talk about, well, food becomes, somebody who's overweight becomes dumb, or, poor, or not classy. They're lazy. They're all of these, like somebody who weighs more than the supposed BMI should be. Well, that person's not healthy. Well, that doesn't have anything to do with it. So
That's why I love Lizzo so much.
Yeah, but that nest, when it comes to food and the morality and the worth of food, it's us.
Or even like
us.
weight. Because like when Lizzo was like, okay, I'm going to start working out, because she does these incredible dance routines in her show, and she was like getting winded and stuff, and she's like, I'm going to get fit, and people like just pounced on her. And they're like, oh, you're supposed to be like the poster child for fat women, and all of a sudden now you want to get healthy. And she's like, healthy, one, has nothing to do with being fat. Like, what? I'm just trying to be healthy so that I can live longer and perform. Like, what? Why are you? I mean, it's like you can't win either way sometimes, It's just, we live in a society, that's like one of the biggest hurdles as a society we have, like Rowan said, is overcoming these ingrained ideas of what health is, and what being healthy means and what it looks like, because it looks like different things for different people. I mean, I made a joke on Twitter like a couple months ago, and I wasn't even thinking, I don't even remember what it was, but I said something, and one of my readers was like, I really love your books, but that's not a cool thing to say. And I read it and I was like, oh my God, you're totally right. Like, I didn't even think, I probably made this joke my whole life. I, apologized, deleted it, and like learned from but not everybody will do that. Some people will get, take offense because, oh, this is like with any other ism. I've been doing this. This is just doesn't mean anything. It's innocuous.
It's just the way it is.
It's just the way it is. I didn't mean anything by it. Don't take you. Why do you have to look for offense in it or whatever it is? It's like, rather than just take that small moment to change that tiny behavior, you just want to dig in. So I don't know. This letter
obviously brought up a lot in all of us.
Yeah.
And I would honestly say, that whether it's this specific situation, or if it's a different situation, if you are, whether it is a romantic partner or a friend or a parent or a family member or whomever, if you are with someone who loves to make you feel small, then that is not even a red flag. That's like a red paint bucket dumped over your head. So, it's something to be aware of, because we do make so many excuses for the people around us, because we love them. And sometimes they don't love us back.
And, a good way is to flip the situation. If they were recovering, would you behave the same way? And if the answer is no, then
you've got your answer.
You've got your answer.
Oh, that's hard. That's hard. Well,
I hope
we hope. Yeah, I know. We hope that you get out of there. And that you continue on recovery, and that hopefully, because I think Rowan's probably right. I hope that she is able to find a path back.
I'm hopeful. I heard enough signs in that letter that I'm hopeful that he's gonna let this one go. It's gonna be painful, but I think this is gonna be that first love that just was a little toxic, and you learn from it. And I see good things for his future. I'm very hopeful.
It's encouraging that he wrote this, and he seems to be, from just that bit that he added at the end, listening to the comments, like looking for advice that he can act on, or permission maybe to, leave.
Yeah, exactly. Well, BB, thank you so much for coming on with us. We loved having you.
Thank you. I loved being here. You
tell
guys are
folks
So
Tell
right.
folks where they can find you and all of that good stuff.
I hang out on Instagram a lot. That's my happy place. I'm trying to learn the TikTok. I'm getting there.
The TikTok.
But yeah, I'm on social media. I'm very accessible. I still try to respond to all my messages, and I just have so much fun talking to other authors, talking to readers. I'm an extrovert, and this is a very isolating job. So social media really helps me feel like I'm part of. I have coworkers and I have a community. So
Yes.
feel free to reach out. And this was delightful. I had so much fun talking to you, brilliant women. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So I had fun with this week's playlist. Just because we've had a couple of episodes now about polyamory and like, open relationships and stuff. And I was like, all these songs that I didn't use on the first playlist, I got to use on this one. So like there's 1, 2, 3, You, Her, and Me from Rick James. There's Triad from Jefferson Airplane. Two Lovers from Mary Wells, which is like a really, song from the 60s. But I was like,
Mary Wells?
Mary Wells, man. Mary Wells. She knew it was up.
There you go.
But I found a song by Nora and Noel called Bisexual Polyamory Crush Blues, which is freaking awesome. So it's on there. So yeah, it's got Black Tape for a Blue Girl, it's Susie and the Banshees, Peaches. So like, yeah, there's some fun stuff on there. So you guys will have to let me know if I nailed it this week.
Love it.
I think you did. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say yes. Absolutely.
Well, here's what you can eat while you're listening to that glorious what's it called? Playlist. That's
Playlist.
The
There you go.
I'm losing words today. Today's recipe is a word that I will remember until the day I die, and that word is coffee cake.
Ooh.
It's a sour cream coffee cake
Mhm.
with more cinnamon and brown sugar than you can shake a stick at, and it's effing delicious. So coffee cake is one of my favorite things of all time, and there are like very divergent thoughts on coffee cake and its function in the world and what is in it. To me, coffee cake should be like half cake and half crumble, half streusel topping. Any less than that, and like, why is it even called a coffee cake? So this coffee cake has like so much. It's got streusel-ness in the middle and on top.
Perfect.
And of course you can like add extra if you want. And it has my favorite thing to do with cinnamon, which is a little bit of cayenne and salt, because the thing about a coffee cake that's got stuff in the middle is it's usually like hefty. It's like bigger, and that means that it can sometimes be too sweet if you have like too much brown sugar and cinnamon, it's like overly sweet. But the sour cream in the cake part gives it like a tanginess, and then a little bit of cayenne and salt with the cinnamon sugar. You really don't even taste the cayenne. It's not like it tastes spicy. It just has this like little bit of something, and you don't quite know what it is. And the salt, I think, is like super necessary anytime you have sugar. But it is just a big old honkin' slice of heaven, and you can add nuts or not at your discretion. Pecans are obviously the way to go, but
Yes.
I also feel like for the summer, a little pistachio wouldn't go amiss. But
I love
doctor it to your heart's
pistachios.
content. I love pistachios in a summer dessert.
I love pistachios, period. Oh my God.
Delicious.
Give them all to me.
I think I've eaten my weight in pecans this year. Like because I was allergic to a lot of nuts. And then like I'm allergic to a lot of foods, but every once in a while I'll try the ones that I'm allergic to just to see if my body chemistry, changing. Yeah. And I don't know, 3 years ago, I discovered I could eat pecans. And then I discovered like, if you toast them lightly, just when you get them, like, so now I eat like pecans every day. It's really good. So yeah, coffee cake with pecans in the streusel. You got me.
Also, I love pecans. Like if you sprinkle pecans with a mixture of cinnamon, cayenne, and salt, like as just a snacking nut, I still love that combination.
It's so good. Yeah.
Put it in your Ziploc baggie and shake it.
Yeah.
Yum. Well, I am going a different route for my recommendation this episode. I am unrecommending something. And so I'm just going to let folks know we're recording this episode on July 14th. And so at the end of last week, over the past weekend, I watched The Tomorrow War with my 12-year-old.
Sorry.
Those of you who are listening cannot see my face and my anger that is still here. This movie made me so mad that by the end of it, I was yelling at my TV, and even my 12-year-old was sitting there going, there's really a lot of plot holes. And I'm like, oh my God, there aren't just plot holes. Like, the guy made like the dumbest decisions ever. I like stupid movies, okay? I like action movies. I like alien movies. I like time travel movies. I like space movies. I like movies that don't make sense. I like all of that stuff. This movie crossed all of those borders. He made decisions that made no sense. Things were not even explained in the actual thing. And oh my, you guys, it makes me so mad. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Don't watch the freaking movie unless you are like live tweeting it and hate watching and then tag me, because I want to hear your thoughts so I can like it and say, yes, that's right. They were dumbasses. I'm serious. It still makes me mad. I woke up the next morning and I was still mad about the stupid.
Is it based on a book? Is that what you
It's
said?
based on a book, which I'm even more surprised to hear that there are like plot holes, I guess, but
no, it was, you guys.
Oh, I believe
for
you.
all of the crap that we get as romance writers, right? And about how unrealistic we are and how there's not even a plot or whatever it is.
Her face.
I just can't even, because I am so angry about like some of the things that were done. Because it had so much potential and so much promise. It's such a cool concept of, it starts off with, there is a war in the future and they send people back so they end up actually being drafted. I mean, to go into the future to fight this war. I mean, there are a ton of really unique, really fun ideas with this. It's so much potential. And I have never wanted to punch people more than during that. And I like to think about punching people a lot. So that should say something. So I am unrecommending Tomorrow War. There you go.
I've heard really bad. I mean, I wasn't going to watch it anyway because like the least interesting Chris is in it.
That's the
nicest thing I can say about him.
Is he super religious, bigoted?
He's
with that Hillside Church, and they are a bunch of crazies. Sorry, folks.
I just don't think he has a lot going on upstairs, and he's very like highly susceptible to influence, and so he's been sucked into, but he's said some stuff and done some stuff. I'm just like, oh my God. But yes, but so I wasn't going to watch it anyway, but then I started reading reviews, which were not even as like that. So yeah, not watching it, but wow.
Yeah, that's my
I've never seen you like this, Avery.
I love you. I recommend it.
She's all flushed. Hey. You guys should see.
It's worth going to YouTube and watching this episode just to see my angry face. So
you should do a reaction video on YouTube. That's what you should do.
All right, so you give our people something to enjoy this week. I am saving them from disenjoying something.
There you go.
So what do y'all got?
What you got, Roman?
My recommendation this week is the Fear Street movies on Netflix.
Oh, how are they?
Okay, so the first two are out as of recording, but by the time this is live, the third one will also be out. They're great. And so for any other like 80s, 90s horror babies out there, you will know the basis of these movies is the R.L. Stine series, Fear Street, which I
Oh,
think
right. Okay.
was
Yeah.
from like 89 to 99, it's about 10 years and like a bazillion books. The movies are really nothing specifically taken from the books except the mythology. But it's really cool. So the way Netflix is doing it is they're dropping one a week for 3 weeks. The first one is 1994, the second one's 1978, and the third one is 1666.
Ooh.
And so there are different people in the first two, but they interlink. And the thing that I think is coolest about them is that they're riffing on the genre as it was in those moments. So the one set in 1994 is really riffing on the like early to mid 90s horror films, like the Scream movies, that kind of thing. And then the 1978 one is really riffing on those like late 70s, 80s slasher flicks, like Halloween. So it's set at a summer camp. And
oh my God, you guys,
wow.
I still have I have scars from that summer camp movie. Do you know which one I'm talking about? Oh, I'm gonna look it up. Keep doing it. I'm gonna look it up because
so
I have still
really
scars.
Cool is that that would be cool enough, but then there's also something that is based in the books. Is there's like a mythology, a supernatural mythology that's overlaid on them. So it isn't just about like killers or killing sprees. There's this witch, or like the legend of this witch, Sarah Fear, who was apparently put to death in 1666 as a witch. And she is like this legend of the town whose spirit invests people to make them kill. So like the killers who are doing all of this in these first two movies, it's because they're possessed by the ghost of Sarah Fear. And that's super clear from the preview even. It's not a spoiler. So it's a really neat combo of like paranormal kind of supernatural and really period specific horror flicks. As for which one I enjoyed more of the first two, I, as a solid 90s person, just the soundtrack of the 94 one left me so delighted that I was super in it. You'll recognize like the clothes and the tropes and the fact that it's the first one starts out in a mall. It even has the person who's at the very beginning, Maya Hawke, who's Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman's daughter.
Yeah.
She works at a mall in this time period, and she was also in season 3 of Stranger Things working at a mall.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
Like a lot of callbacks, and like if you're someone who likes the movies of these two eras, you'll definitely recognize tons of like callbacks to them, references, really little like inside jokes or things that are really clear. The music is great. I really like that they, in the 94 one, they have several covers of songs that then they play the originals of in the 78 version. I haven't seen the 1666 version, the kind of like origin story one yet, but what you can tell from the preview is that it's the cast of the first two movies set in 1666. So it's like people that you've seen in the first two movies playing the characters in the third one, so that all three movies are really connected. And I think it's such a cool model, and I hope Netflix does more like
sounds like
anthology
like,
type things.
American Horror Story, where they keep the same actors, they just play different roles.
Yeah, it is, but it's like, since it's not an anthology, it's like films that I just think like, well, I mean, this is a whole other conversation that I swear I won't go down this rabbit hole, but like I do think that you can do such different things with a 2-hour movie than you can with like a 12-hour long TV series that's broken up into hour-long chunks. And I think that the series of films is like something that I can only think of a couple of them, and like not Marvel, series, but chunkers. Anyway, highly recommend. Really enjoyed it. I'll weigh in when I see 1666, which comes out this Friday the 16th, which will be in the past for all of you, which sounds kind of
so it's out now.
Yeah. I'm really excited because I want to watch those really bad, and I can't get anybody in my house to watch those with me.
They're really fun, and they're very talk about like horror light, although there's like a bit of gore because they are in the slasher genre. they're not very scary, and they're really fun, and they manage to like pay homage to all those movies without being like super serious. So they're definitely watchable even if you're not like a horror fan, I think.
I'm excited.
My rec is also a television series. I guess we're in
I love it. We're all in binge
movie
mode.
and TV, but yeah. And I wasn't going to watch this show just because it was described to me as a mashup between Scum, which you know is sacred to me, and Red, White, and Royal Blue. And I thought, okay, someone's just cashing in on these popular, entities. But I watched it, and it's called Young Royals. It's on Netflix. And it follows a young prince, the Prince of Sweden. He's like this. He's the second in line for the throne, so he's not the firstborn, and he's just kind of rudderless and doesn't know what to do with his life, and it just gets into like scandal after scandal, as a young teen does, and his family
does.
As one does. He is one scandal too many. He gets in a fight at a club, and it's all over social media, and his family, the king and queen, sent him to boarding school where all these other influential families go. And so you get this sort of like high school angst thing going on, but these kids are all the next leaders of the free world, so you got that. And that didn't interest me at all. I was like, I don't care about the rich and powerful kids and their little problems. But what made me watch is I saw a clip of the two young leads, and their names are, and I wanted to get this right, Edvin Riding and Omar Rudberg, who play the prince and this sort of like working class kid who's at the school on scholarship. And their chemistry and the way that they play off of each other, the friendship that develops between them that turns into the romance, is so authentically sweet and just loving that I just ended up watching 5 of the 6 episodes. I haven't watched the last episode yet because it's going to break my heart. But if you like these sort of like behind the scenes of the rich and powerful, because they do turn a lot of things on their ear. They show you how these kids have all this pressure on them to be like, things happen. He's the prince of a country, so he can't be a normal kid, and he just wants to be a normal kid. And at first you're like, yeah, whatever, kid, you've got like all the money in the world and all this stuff at your feet, but you do begin to feel for him, particularly when he discovers his own sexuality. So it's a really interesting show. I don't want to give a lot away, but if you have an afternoon or a couple of afternoons, because it's only 6 episodes, I highly recommend it. It's an interesting glimpse into not only that world of like having that kind of power and money, but also a totally different culture, because Sweden, it's another place. And so it's an interesting to see, like, you can see all the Western influences, you can see all the similarities between like American and British culture and all that stuff, but it's also still very Scandinavian. So I think, yeah, so I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Young Royals.
Yeah. All right, so I guess this means we'll be watching movies and TV shows binging for a while.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Big thanks to BB Easton for being our guest.
She was awesome
this week. She was very awesome. And thank you guys for hanging out with us. Be sure to send in those letters. We want them. And we'll be back with a new episode soon. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for subscribing to Dear Romance Writer. Remember to keep sending in those letters at dearromancewriter.com. We can't wait to tell you what to do. Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love, frolic.media/podcasts.